Okay, here is the tea, if you will. So my husband and I have been trying to conceive for 8 months now. We started back in May and it is now December. It has been quite the journey, and I kind of just wanted to give an update and share everything we've done, everything we've tried, everything we've been through since it all started. So I guess I'll just start with how we knew we were ready to start trying. We got married last November. It was probably around like March or April where I started to kind of get baby fever, if you will. There was one moment specifically where I was like, I think I want to have a baby. So we were in church, and I think it was in April, and we were in church, and the sermon wasn't even about motherhood or babies or anything related to that. But while we were sitting there listening to the sermon, I got this nudge like, I think I want to be a mom. I think I want to have a baby. And I'm like, okay, God, is this you? Is this my ovaries playing tricks on me? Like, what's going on? I just can't even explain it, but it was just this strong like sense of, I want to have a baby, I'm ready to be a mom. So I was like, do I tell my husband? What do I do? And I literally like leaned over and told him, hey, I think I want to have a baby. And he was like, what? So anyways, we talked about it and I told him what happened. And since that moment in church, I was just praying about it all the time. And I was asking my husband to pray about it for himself. And then other things that led me to believe we were ready is when I started to get my period, I would get sad. And this was when we weren't even trying, we were using protection, so it wasn't even possible for us yet. But I would literally start to get sad when my period came. So I was like, okay, that's another sign. And then just like going to family events or like hanging out with friends, I would just start to feel like something is missing, and that something was our baby. And I know that sounds really weird to say, but still now to this day, I have that feeling every time we are just hanging out with our friends or family. I'm like, we're missing something and it's our baby. And I just know that, and it's just a really hard feeling unless you experience that. It's kind of hard to explain or understand. And then obviously my husband came to his own mind about he was ready to have a baby. So we started trying in May, which was only a month after I had that conviction in church, which is kind of cool. Obviously I kind of thought it was going to happen immediately because I'm like, the Lord gave me this conviction and my desire is so strong, and it didn't happen. And I was very confused and sad. I will say that within these 8 months, there was one time where I did get pregnant, and it was actually last month, and I actually still have the test. So what happened last month is I actually didn't track my ovulation very well last month because I wanted to kind of take a step back from it. And I'll talk a little bit more about tracking later, but I didn't track last month. I knew about around the day that I was ovulating, like I knew my fertile window, so we still, you know, did what we needed to do around that time. So I didn't know how many days post ovulation I was, is kind of what I'm getting to, because based on that, you know when you can start testing. So anyways, it was a Monday and I had just got home from work and I randomly felt the nudge to like take a test. So I did, and there was a faint line on the test, and it was the craziest feeling. I can't even explain how happy I was. So I didn't tell my husband on Monday. On Tuesday, I came home from work, did the same thing, took another test. It was a little bit darker. I did end up telling my husband on Tuesday. I was trying to wait until I got the positive on the digital to tell him because I knew he wasn't gonna see the line. And I remember showing him and he was like, there's kind of a line, but he still wasn't too sure. Like, he needed that bold line or he needed the pregnant on the digital to know. Anyways, next morning on Wednesday, I took a digital, and that's when I got this positive on the digital. And it was just so fun to get this and to show him. And it was like, oh my gosh, it's real. Like, this is happening. It's obviously kind of sad now to think about because I should be 8 weeks pregnant right now, but I'm not. So that part is sad, but it brings me joy and hope to know that it is possible for us and we can get pregnant, because we didn't even know if we could get pregnant in the first place. But anyways, got the positive digital on a Wednesday, and then I kept testing just to make sure my lines were getting darker, and they were getting a little bit darker, but still were pretty faint. Kind of had this feeling in my gut, like, what's going on? Why aren't the lines getting that dark? But I kind of just thought I was just so early because, again, I didn't know what day I ovulated. So that Friday I didn't take a test. Saturday morning I took a test and there was no line anymore. And As soon as I looked at that test, I just knew instantly that I was losing it. Sunday is the day that was 4 weeks from my last period, so technically I would have been 4 weeks pregnant on Sunday. So it was a super, super early miscarriage, and they usually call that a chemical pregnancy because it just means that there's basically no proof that you were pregnant other than the positive pregnancy test, because it would have been way too early to see anything on an ultrasound. So that's why it's called a chemical pregnancy. But I still think of it as a miscarriage because I was pregnant. There was life forming inside of me and I lost it. So that's kind of how I think of it. One day I will have to throw this away. And I will, but I'm just not ready for that yet. So we are still planning on trying again this month. But I kind of want to get into a little bit of how I've been tracking since we started trying. When we first started trying, I was basically just using the apps I use to monitor my period for it to tell me when my fertile window was, because I was brand new to it and I didn't really know how everything worked. The app that I was using at first to track my period is called, let me find it. It just is called PC. I think it stands for period calendar, maybe? I don't even know, but it kind of looks like a little pink notebook with a flower on it. Any app that you use to track your period will give you like a 5-day fertile window based on when your last period was and when you should be ovulating next time. It's not always accurate. It was probably only about 2 months that I just used the app, and then I kind of started researching some more, learning some more about how you can track better than just an app, because like I said, it's not always accurate. You can use your cervical mucus, because when you're in your fertile window, it changes. I'm not going to go into too many details, but it basically looks like egg whites. So I will say I do get that during my fertile window, so I was kind of using that to tell when I need to do what I need to do to get pregnant. So I started using that probably about 2 months in, and I also ordered some ovulation strips, which basically it kind of looks like a pregnancy test. It's a little strip and you dip it in your pee whenever you're close to your fertile window. For it to be positive, the second line has to be as dark or darker than the control line, and that basically just means you're having what's called an LH peak or spike, and that is what happens in your body that triggers it to release an egg. And when you release that egg, you're ovulating. Also, I do want to say, do not take my word for everything I'm explaining. Ask your doctor, talk to your doctor. I'm sure they can explain it better than I can. This is based off my own research, so take it with a grain of salt. That's all I'm saying. So I started using ovulation strips. I did that for about 2 or 3 months. I was getting positives on them, so I'm like, okay, I am ovulating. This is possible. We still weren't getting pregnant. And then probably about 4 months into trying to conceive, I got a ring to track my basal body temperature. So the ring is from Thermometer, and it also came with an app, and I started using that app to track my period and kind of log all my symptoms and everything, along with tracking my basal body temperature. So what happens with that is after you ovulate, your BBT will start to increase, and that kind of is a good sign that you have ovulated. So if you use BBT in conjunction, if that's the right word, if you use BBT and ovulation strips together, that's a really good way to figure out when you're ovulating, because you get that positive LH strip, and then 2 or 3 days later your BBT starts to rise. You're like, okay, I have most likely ovulated. So I was using that for a few months, and then I kind of started getting a little bit crazy with it. I'm a little bit of a control freak, so when I feel like the tracking got to a point where I was more stressed about the tracking than I was relaxed, and I feel like that can kind of play with your body too, being in a state of stress all the time. The month that I did get pregnant, which was last month, I wasn't tracking with the strips. I was only using my cervical mucus and the BBT, and I feel like that was good for me because I didn't know what day I ovulated. One thing I'll say with tracking, and the reason I was getting crazy from it, is you pretty much know the exact day you ovulate. With knowing that day, you can test as early as 7 days post-ovulation to see if you are pregnant. And I do not recommend doing that because it will drive you crazy. I am a serial tester, so I'm gonna test as early as I can, which is terrible. You shouldn't do that. You should wait until your period or you miss your period to test because you'll go crazy. I just couldn't do that. If I know that I'm 7 or 8 days post ovulation and there could be a positive on that test, I'm gonna take it. Okay, and that was the problem with me with the tracking. Also, there are other things that you can try that people claim to work. The few things I've heard are mucinex and pre-seed. I did try mucinex, and I will say I tried mucinex last month, and that was the month that I did get pregnant, but it was the chemical pregnancy. So technically it worked, but did it? I don't, that was the first time I did get pregnant, so it helped the sperm reach the egg, maybe, but obviously it was not a viable pregnancy. Also, I am taking some supplements. I'm gonna go get them so I can show you. So probably about 3 months in, I started doing more research and learning about how to track better and like supplements I should be taking, things like that. So I ordered supplements and I've been taking these since probably, like I said, 3 months into our journey. So what I take is, and this is not me telling you to get these supplements, I'm just showing you what I take. B12. This one is CoQ10. Apparently this is supposed to help with your egg quality. And then this is D3 plus K2. We're almost out of those. I need to get some more. And then also this is the prenatal I take. It's by Smarty Pants. As for this month, let's get down to the real tea. As for this month, it is our 8th month of trying to conceive. I am in my 2-week wait. I'm actually really, really close to finding out. I'm gonna tell on myself. Okay, I'm telling on myself. I did already take a lot of tests. I don't know. Again, this month I didn't use ovulation strips. I only used my cervical mucus. So I don't know exactly what day I ovulated, but I have a pretty good idea. And right now, today, I would be probably like 16 or 17 DPO, but I've just been so scared to test the past few days because I'm scared for it to be negative. But I stupidly went to the store and got first responses last week, and if I have them, I'm gonna use them. I shouldn't even have them in my house because if I do, I'm gonna use them. I started testing probably at, I think it was 8 DPO because technically last month when I found out it was like 3 weeks and 2 days, so it was really early. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna find out early again. Stupid, 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 stupid. Don't do it. So this is 8 DPO. Clearly negative. I took 8, 9, 10 DPO, all negatives. Also took some Pregmate strips, negative. One thing that did make me stop testing this month is I started spotting, and a lot of times before I get my period I will spot a few days before my period. I've heard some people say that's normal, some people say that's abnormal and could be a sign of low progesterone. Until I talk to my doctor about it, I'm not freaking out too much about it. Usually I'll only spot 1 or 2 days before. The most I have ever spotted is 4 days, with the 4th day being the day that I did start my period. That brings me to this month. I can't remember the day I started spotting. I wish I would have put it in my app, but I'm pretty sure it was Thursday. Okay, today's Tuesday, so that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. That's 6 days. That's the longest I've ever spotted. So it starts to make me wonder what's going on here. Is it implantation? You know, obviously, I hope and pray that it is. Just this little doubt in me that it's not, and that's what makes me scared. So there's that. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. Not to be rude, but my husband isn't much help when it comes to that because he thinks I'm crazy in the first place from testing too early, which I am, but like, come on. That's one of the reasons why I started like kind of posting about all this on TikTok and now YouTube, because I just need somebody to talk about it, because talking about it really helps me kind of sort my thoughts and feelings out, and it's almost therapeutic for me to talk about it. And my husband says I talk about it too much to him. So now I have you guys to talk about it with. And also I feel like it's really important for me to document my journey because it's gonna be so exciting to look back one day and watch all of this play out, knowing that I will have my baby. Like, I know that we're gonna have a baby because it's just God has given me that desire, and I know he's gonna make it come true. It's just the timing of when. And if you can't tell, I am a control freak, and I like to plan out every little detail, and I like to have control of when it happens. So that's one of the hardest things for me, especially about being a Christian, is you're supposed to just give all your worries and anxieties and fears and everything to God and let him play it out in his timing for your life, because his timing is always perfect and it's way better than your timing. I saw something on TikTok and it was like, God already knows your baby's birthday. And that was just sweet. Like, he already knows the date that I'm gonna have my baby and when I'm gonna get pregnant and all of that. He already has it all planned out, and that just gives me so much hope that it's gonna happen one day. I just have to relax. Also, if anybody has gone through a chemical pregnancy or a miscarriage, my thoughts and prayers are with you. I literally pray almost every day. I try to pray every day about everybody who's going through trying to conceive and anyone who's experienced loss, because it's such a difficult journey emotionally, and just, yeah, I just pray for everybody who's going through that. And I pray that you will all get your babies, miracle babies, rainbow babies soon. And I think I've yapped long enough. That's everything with our trying to conceive journey. If anybody has any suggestions about anything or what has worked for them, let me know. I could talk about this for days and years and so long. If you want to talk about it, let me know. I'll talk about it. Thanks for listening to me yap for way too long.